Hello and welcome to Prompt Engineering for ChatGPT. Now in this section, we're going to take a deep dive into prompt engineering and explain exactly what that is, how we can leverage prompt engineering to get better responses from ChatGPT, and how we can take it to the next level. I'm going to be covering 5 steps to improve your prompts and engineer them in a way that will give you exactly the responses that you're after from ChatGPT. So you might be wondering, what exactly is prompt engineering? Now, prompt engineering, as the name suggests, is the ability to engineer a prompt. But now, you might be thinking, what is there to engineer with a prompt? And here's where we date back to normal human conversations and interactions and the skill of asking the right questions. So a skill that has gone under the radar is asking the right questions, and that's how you make sure that you get the right answers from human interactions. But now when we take it into an AI, it's even more important because an AI doesn't have that human touch to be able to understand exactly what you're after unless you provide a very specific prompt. So what we're going to do is take a look at 5 ways that you can improve your prompt to get the best results out of ChatGPT. I want to go ahead and start with the first one, and that is being clear and concise. What you want to do is make sure that your prompt is easy to understand. You want to make sure that it's very clear, easy for someone to understand, and eliminate unnecessary facts, information from your prompt. This is the part where you really want to hone in on the keywords and explain to ChatGPT what you want to achieve from the response. So if we go back into ChatGPT and we go back to the creative writing piece where we wanted to write a short story about a boy who lived down the road. Now, while this is short and say concise, I wouldn't say that it's very clear what we're after. It just says we want a story about a boy who lived down the road. I'm sure that there are a lot more details that you want in the story that you haven't explained to ChatGPT if you provide a prompt like this. Now, to get more out of this story, I want to provide a bit more information and be very clear to ChatGPT in explaining what I want out of this. So I give a little bit of context and explain that he struggles traveling up this road to perform simple errands, and he only has one 3-year-old sibling and is very lazy. Now, the important part about being clear regarding what I want to achieve out of this response is letting ChatGPT know that I want it to be 3 paragraphs long and in the tone of a children's book. Now, that's super important because if I didn't include that, it doesn't know what tone to write it in. It could make it a novel, it could make it an adult novel, it could even turn it into a short script. But because I've explicitly mentioned I want a short story in the tone of a children's book, when we go ahead and hit enter, it writes it like a children's book. There was once a boy named Timmy who lived down the long road. And you can have a look at this and try a bunch of different prompts, and you'll notice the difference when you start to be more specific with ChatGPT. So I gave it some facts about the boy's family, where he lived, the tasks that he had to perform in the day. But if I was to provide information that was completely irrelevant to this long road, then we would probably end up with a response that we weren't after. So with prompt engineering, make sure the first thing is that you are clear and concise when you're providing your prompt. Now, step number 2 is providing background and context. Now, this is super important, and the reason why I mentioned saved chats earlier on in this course, because saved chats allow us to maintain that context and carry it over throughout our conversations day after day. Because if I had a conversation yesterday and I now want to continue that conversation, ChatGPT still has that context. So let's create a new chat, and I want this to be about my business. So let's say I run a baby toy company and I want to sell baby toys. Now, I've just started a new website and I want to generate content for this. Providing background and context is critical. So what I will do is let ChatGPT know exactly what my business is, what my values are, and what I want to achieve. Then from that, I will ask it to generate content. So I've just informed ChatGPT about my company. I told it that I own a baby toy company that sells baby toys online, that I value health and safety of children. I've gone in and explained what I do, also my age. I've given it a bit of information that might help it as if I was talking to a general marketing company. So it's given me a response, obviously, because it is a chat bot, and it's gone through and provided some information about the health and safety. It even goes into the CPSC. But now what I'm going to do is, now that I've given it context, I'm going to go ahead and ask it a prompt. Now, this is where it gets interesting because you can provide a lot more context, but for this video's sake, I'm going to stick with just this. I'm going to say I'm launching a new website, and I want to ask it to provide me with the hero text and a slogan. I also want it to provide me with a bunch of options so that I can pick and choose. So what you'll notice now when just having a look at the hero text is it says, discover the perfect playmates for your little ones. And even in the second one, safe, natural, and fun toys for your growing child. So you'll see that already, or even if you have a look at the fourth one, nurture your child's development with our age-appropriate toys. What you'll notice is it has taken into consideration the context that I've given it, what I value, what my company's motto or slogan its values are, and taken those into consideration when generating these responses. Now I'm going to go ahead and jump into a new chat, ask it the exact same question and provide no context and see the difference between the responses. So I've said I'm launching a new website, generate the hero text. My company sells baby toys. Simple as that. And now you notice it gives me a bunch of information. Shop the best selection of baby toys on the market, find the perfect toy for your little one, but none of it focuses on the context that I provided, and therefore doesn't align with my company goals, the values, and really not the best response that I'm after. So this is where you can see that context and background information plays a huge role in the responses that you gain from ChatGPT. Alrighty, we're about to go into the third key point of prompt engineering, and that is providing specific keywords. Now, what specific keywords do is point ChatGPT in the right direction. Without these, ChatGPT will provide a response similar to the context situation where we want to make sure that we get the right answer out of this. But these specific keywords are going to point ChatGPT in the right direction, let us know what we want from it, and give us the response, hopefully, that we're after. An example of this that we've seen already in previous videos of this course is actually in the code generation section. So when we were generating the code, we were making sure that we told ChatGPT exactly what framework we were after. Now, an example of this is if I was to generate content for, let's say, Google AdWords. So what I want to do is let ChatGPT know that the content I want is for a Google ad, and let ChatGPT determine what the best content for that platform is. So if I say now I want to generate a Google ad for my company, my values. Now, because I cleared my previous chats, I needed to provide a short bit of context to let it know what it is. But I said I now wanted to generate a Google ad for my company. Here's what's important. I want to let it know exactly what I want. So I said Google ad, but I also now want to tell it to generate the title and descriptions. Generate relevant titles and descriptions. Now here's where ChatGPT gives us exactly what you want. You'll notice that the titles are short in length and also long for the descriptions. Now what I have noticed is sometimes it struggles to get character lengths right, so you may need to tweak some of the responses you get from ChatGPT, especially when you do have a character limit. So I think for Google Ads, the character limit is around 15 characters. I'm pretty sure this goes over, or it may be 30, but you do have a limit. So this does go over. What I can do is copy this, paste it, and say make this less than 30 characters. It does struggle doing this, by the way, so it's not the best in doing so, but it does give us some options so we can be pointed in the right direction. One of the misconceptions with ChatGPT is that it can just answer anything, but I think the real skill here is actually knowing the topic that you want to research, knowing the topic you want to write content about, and really pointing ChatGPT in the right direction. Just making it very broad and letting ChatGPT go wild is probably not going to yield the best responses and give you exactly what you're after. However, using the tips and tricks that we're learning in this course about prompt engineering and being able to point ChatGPT in the right direction, you are going to be an expert at generating prompts and receiving the responses that you're after from ChatGPT in no time. Alrighty, so in this video, we're going to be going through the fourth way that we should be engineering our prompt so that we can get the most out of ChatGPT. So the fourth point of prompt engineering is the way in which you ask your questions. So asking your questions in a certain way. Understanding what the circumstance is, what your desired outcome is, what you would like as a response from ChatGPT, and then being able to tailor your prompt to achieve that is super important. Now, depending on what response you want, you will go for either an abstract or a very concrete and precise prompt. So if I want ChatGPT to be a lot more creative and give me more of an open-ended response, I will be a lot more abstract. So now, as an example, if I was to jump into ChatGPT and put in the prompt, write a short story about the relationship between a person and their dog. Now that's super abstract, and what it's going to do is put together a story just given those two bits of information. But if I want a story to be very specific, I have a plot in mind and I want it to focus around that storyline, what I would do is, like we mentioned in a previous episode, we would actually give ChatGPT a bit of background, some context, and expect it to generate the story around that. So an example of a concrete prompt would be something like this. Describe a day in the life of a golden retriever named Max. Max is a 3-year-old friendly dog who loves going on runs and playing fetch in the park. He lives with his owner, a young woman named Emily, in a small apartment in the city. Now, if I hit enter on this, I can expect ChatGPT to give exactly that. Now, this is a great example for where ChatGPT can go wrong if you are not specific. Take note of this. When you provide a concrete, very specific prompt to ChatGPT, you are going to get a very specific answer. I asked ChatGPT to describe a day in the life of, and it did exactly that. It starts with a typical day in the life of, and it continues from there. So if I explicitly wanted it to give me a story, I would ask ChatGPT to do that. And instead of saying describe a day in the life of, I would say write a story about. And now the response is completely different. So you'll notice in the first one, it was very structured, started with the morning, a quick breakfast, a run, afternoon, evening, and dinner, and then finally at around 10 p.m. So it structures it as a day in the life. But now once I said I want it to be a story, it'll still give me a structured response, but it's more with the flow of a narrative. So from this, we can see the outcome of providing ChatGPT with a very abstract or a very concrete and specific prompt. And this helps us make a decision as to what we want to ask ChatGPT depending on what we expect from the response. So make sure you know when you want ChatGPT to be a lot more creative, you provide a lot more of an abstract prompt. And if you want something very specific, give ChatGPT a very concrete prompt. And with that, we will move into the next point, which is experimentation. Hello again and welcome to the final video in the chapter Prompt Engineering. So in this, we're going to close off the topic of prompt engineering. We've gone through a bunch so far. We've already explained being clear and concise, providing context and background information, using specific words, keywords, and phrases. And our last point was asking questions in a certain way. Now, the final point here is around experimentation. When it comes to new technologies, but also technologies that revolve around artificial intelligence and providing things like prompts, we need to be very experimental. There will be a lot of trial and error, getting ChatGPT to understand your context, understand a bit of the background of what you want to achieve with it, the prompts you're after, and then being able to tailor those responses for you. So with a bit of experimentation, you will be able to get the right results that you're after. Now, when it comes to experimentation, I really want to emphasize on the fact that ChatGPT is a chatbot. So there is that chat aspect, and I feel like a lot of the trial and error, the experimentation should come from that chat aspect of this piece of technology. So what I've noticed is the best way for you to receive the prompts that you're after and get the best results out of ChatGPT is to provide an initial prompt and kickstart the process. Send a prompt, whether it's abstract or concrete, you'll be able to get a response, and from that you can now chat with the AI and ask it to modify the response it originally gave towards something more suited to what you're after. If we go back to our previous example where we were talking about this, describing a day in the life of a dog. So if I hit enter and I go back to that prompt, it'll give me the whole day in the life. Now it's very likely that you're going to send prompts to ChatGPT and receive a response nowhere near what you're after. And this is one example. So you may have just thought in your mind, I'll ask it to describe a day in the life of a golden retriever, and then found the response is very structured, too structured really for your liking, and that you would rather it be a story. Now, instead of rewriting this, I can just ask ChatGPT to write that in a story. Now, once it writes this as a story, it'll give me an introduction, complication, climax, resolution. It'll structure it the way a story should be structured. I can then decide to say, how about a poem, and expect ChatGPT to do exactly that. But what I think will go a really long way is once you've played around with ChatGPT a little bit, being able to communicate with it, chat back and forth, and be able to generate different responses within the same chat, understanding what prompted ChatGPT to give certain responses and being able to do that from the beginning. So if, for example, I've gone through this process, I started off with the day in the life of, then realized I need to ask it to write it as a story. The next time I come to do this, instead of going through the entire chat process, that's when I reword the statement from the beginning. So what I want you to do is jump straight into ChatGPT, play around with a bunch of different content generation methods, different prompts, go back and forth with this chat and really hone in on that skill of prompt engineering. And I hope that was super useful as we move into our next topic.